Hey y'all, thanks for coming to our talk today. If we haven't met, my name is Zach Saylor. This is Shravan from my team at Apple. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about notebook sharing and notebook publishing, a theme that we've heard throughout the conference. But our approach here is maybe slightly different from what you've seen at some of these other notebook solutions. What we're doing today is demonstrating some different constraints we had running this inside of an enterprise system, but also the fact that we did this entirely using JupyterLab extensions and extension points. And so everything that you see here is sitting on an open source repo. And the current state of it is basically looking for help. People that are interested in working on this problem, we're trying to drum up some energy around notebook sharing and creating a set of plugins and services that you will see that work together really well, and they work natively in JupyterLab. And they enable you to share notebooks with colleagues in a system maybe like Jupyter Hub. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the goal and motivation for today. At the end, we'll go through some places you can look to help contribute, but keep that in your mind as you're listening to the talk and you're interested in getting involved with this. So with that, I'm going to let Shravan take it away.
All right. Thank you, Zach. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, okay, perfect. So, okay. So sharing actually can be ambiguous, may mean different things to different people. So in this, we'll focus on basically a standardized way to publish notebooks and also be able to collaborate with your peers, either like a live mode or an offline mode. So the problem is kind of obvious, and I think we have had various talks in this JupyterCon, many keynotes, many forks, where it's great when you're doing work, but when you want to publish it, you have to do some additional things. You have to do a complex exercise. For example, some solutions use like attaching the notebook into your email and sending them, using Slack or Messenger tool, but all of those don't work because you end up with the version problem, and then you end up having to rename them and then move files around, so it's not super smooth. Maybe some other solutions, like you could use like push it to object store and get a link from there, but you can't control how that link further gets shared. GitHub is a great example. I think that's the closest, probably the most widely used solution. It's great. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So GitHub is an interesting example. It's good for publishing a notebook, but the Git kind of gets in the middle. You'll have to learn Git basically, which many of us kind of take it for granted these days. But there are large parts of the population who don't want to learn Git as well. And GitHub also, you'll have to probably implement some kind of an access control on top of GitHub to actually share it to a specific group of users or a specific one person. And then you'll have to also keep your repository open, which enterprises can't always do that because there are some private unpublished projects. So all in all, lot of different solutions, a lot of duplications. So we thought that what if Jupyter natively had a way to at least a standard interface to publish and share and also collaborate. So when we thought of building the solution, we outside of the technical requirements like scaling, etc., and everything, these are some of the things that we wanted to build upon. First is no forking. We build on top of Jupyter so that potentially every Jupyter deployment gets this kind of natively, and the experience doesn't seem like something that's put on top of Jupyter. It feels like it is part of Jupyter. Its native experience is kind of useful, and also we wanted to build it in a way that it can be extendable with the reference implementation, so that you don't want to extend it, then you get it out of the box, but also be able to extend and swap components out as per your need, as per your org's need. So let's, before going into the model and the data types and more technical aspects, let's maybe jump into what experiences that we have come up with on top of that generic interface. Primarily, we have two categories. First is a way to publish your notebook and share it with your peers. And but it's like a static copy. So you snapshot it at a specific point in time, share it, publish it first, and share it with n number of people, and they get a copy, and you both have separate copies. That's one useful scenario where users have been wanting to collaborate, but without getting Git in the way or without any third-party UIs to navigate into. So let's see the first part, and this is a video that I'm going to play, and I'll try to explain through the way. So this is a regular Jupyter notebook, and you see on the top right in the menu toolbar we have the share button, which is implemented through like an extension on the Jupyter. And once you press that button, it opens a modal where you could integrate with a search API for your organization and choose the people that you want to share with. You could have users, groups, any GitHub user, and any such combination there. And press done, and basically it's shared. And you could also copy the link. You have two options to link. Copy the link, either the whole notebook or just the outputs, because some people just be interested in the output. And the link, you could share it any which way, like that you could share with email or Slack or any which way you want. And then once on the other side, the person sees a rendered HTML version of the notebook you shared, without any of the code that we saw earlier. And if actually it's not so obvious here, but this is actually a browser window. So you could open this as any web page on the browser without having to use JupyterLab. So if there are people who don't want to use Jupyter and still want to consume outputs, this is a way to potentially do that. And the goal is to have this experience as a reference implementation, so that each time you install Jupyter, you get it out of the box. So just that's the goal. And next, let me go on the next one. And in this case, on the other side, on the receiver side, there is an easy way to see what files that you have published and you have shared, and what files have been shared with you. You don't have to jump into a different UI to see, hey, what files are shared with me. So you can discover the files right away without leaving JupyterLab. And it's like a tiny bit of productivity gains, and which I believe is useful. And this is actually on a separate instance of Jupyter. It's not, imagine if the receiver has their own instance of Jupyter and the sender has one completely different. This list is populated through the API that we want to standardize here. All right, so and in this case, on the receiver side, some people have shared some notebooks with me, but I don't know what it is about. So you could also preview it first. And the preview is kind of like a HTML version where you can't edit it. But then you could go and download it. Hey, this is what I want, and I download it in my file system, and then I can go and edit it. So there's a way for you to see if you want to work on it. So receiver has some controls over that file, the notebook that they want to collaborate on. You could also rename it along the way, depending on however you want to save it in your local file system. So this is more of an offline way of doing things where you don't need the sender to be available. Like the sender has done their work and gone home, and you can consume this completely independently of the sender. And this is also a way for interesting use case from this is also that you could also have a snapshot of your file periodically published into through the API. That way you can periodically keep track of your work. All right, so next bit is also interesting, where this is the second set of features that this API supports, which is in this format. It's not offline, it's more live editing, where you, as a host, as somebody who wants to collaborate, I invite people to collaborate with me on a notebook and have a live session. I would imagine maybe in a classroom, a teacher invites their students to work on a project, or just two coworkers kind of doing a pair programming scenario where one invites and other joins. So let's see how that looks like. So in this case, you see, this is Zach. This is a Zach's notebook, and Zach is inviting my other colleague Andre to collaborate. Here, you see, it's the same interface where you gave Andre the editor access, and you copied the live link, which is separate from the static copy, and you opened the live room, so enable live collaboration so that Andre can actually log in to this live session. On the right side, we have Andre logging into the same notebook. You can see that Zach is able to see what collaborators there are, and Andre is able to see a minimal view of JupyterLab. It doesn't have all the access, but it's enough for live editing. Like they can edit, but they can't run the code. So there's a lot going on here, but Andre has been asked to write some code in the middle, and the edits are being seen in both places. And Andre is done editing, and Zach is able to run that code. And Zach then actually adds further code on top of it, and then comes out with a combined output of that collaboration. And after that, he's able to switch off that session, and the live session ends. And the guest, in this case Andre, is no longer able to access it. And I think this, we believe, especially there are use cases for this in the enterprises. I'm sure in the academia also has some use cases like this, where you'd want to have a temporary collaborative session which ends after the work is complete, and the host has control over when they can start this session. All right, that's that, and a little bit of the code. So yeah, this is again a bit technical, and I couldn't get the whole API in here, but the data types are quite generic. There's no proprietary, or there's no custom information here. For example, we want to track metadata of the shared file, not the Jupyter contents itself. So this is metadata on things like the ID author name is not the name of the document, or it could be one, but it's the name of the shared file. Of course, this is all subject to review, so if you guys have better ideas, I think we're happy to tune this one. And this kind of gets embedded into associated with the collaborators' roles and contents. And this API is now natively available, or it can be natively available in Jupyter. So this is a direction that we want to head towards, and I think we want more work in this area for sure. But the standardizing the models, we think, is probably the first step. All right, so it's a bit about the architecture, I think, and so the way we have done it is, since we had this requirement to support browser access on the published notebook. We've kind of hosted it separately from the server. But ideally, if you have just the Jupyter deployment, you could actually co-host it with the server. It doesn't matter. That way, all the Jupyter, you would have to write a couple of extensions integrating with the API, and you would get all the uh, publishing and sharing aspects of this kind of out of the box. Not necessarily out of the box, but a little bit with very minimal work. And you can integrate with, you can swap out components. You can put in your search API, like the search API could be GitHub users, GitHub groups, teams, or your enterprise IDPs where you get search APIs there. Or you could put your, and you can put your storage like S3 or local or any such implementations are possible. All right, I think I'll hand over to Zach for the closing remarks, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So maybe the question is, can I use this today? If I'm spinning up notebooks or I have a multi-user notebook environment, can I use this sharing feature today? And the answer to that is yes, the code is open source. One of the places that we're missing is probably the most common places to run this is in Jupyter Hub. Right, have this spin up as a service that multiple single-user hub servers can talk to, and just have notebooks shared between hub servers. We have a draft PR open for that. That's kind of where we're looking for help, and it's not that hard, right? The idea here is that Hub already has this notion of Jupyter servers that it spawns, and it has a notion of services that it can run managed by the hub, and brokering the auth through that is really easy. And so it's just wrapping our publishing service with that hub. So that's the draft PR that we have open, and once that gets merged, you can just spin this up inside a Jupyter Hub. So the work is mostly there, but I think we don't have a use case for that immediately, personally. So it's just helpful to get people who are trying notebook sharing or want notebook sharing in a Hub context to come check that out. I also want to point out that like the choice we made here was to take this host guest model for collaboration. Right, so what's happening here is when a user shares a notebook for live collaboration. So if you're going to do some pair programming with a colleague, or you're going to be maybe a teacher who wants to show a demo, we have done a couple interesting things there. One is the host server has the YDoc or the CRDT. That's the live object that's living in the server for collaboration. That's brokering collaboration and syncing between the front ends. And then we're exposing a new view of the classic notebook, right? We're using components from Notebook version 7 to provide a stripped down view that the guests see. So the guests don't get a whole Jupyter Hub. They just hit the user or the host server and get handed back a simple one document view. And then they're collaborating in a document with the host. And then the host controls when they kick everyone out. So the moment the host decides to leave, they can hit the button, turn off the session, and it kicks everybody out automatically. Right? And so for a lot of use cases, it's particularly helpful that you can control the collaboration environment. We're not leaving a collaborative room open for an indefinite amount of time. Okay, that was a design choice we had, and we were just talking about there's ways that we could also open it up to where it's always running. So that's part of the discussion we're trying to invite people into. Every piece of this is a configurable class in the same way that the classic Jupyter model is. They're traitlets configs, right? You can swap out the pieces and swap in classes that inherit from the base, and you can control where things are stored, where you search users. So for Jupyter Hub, that's easy. We have a hub database that we could communicate with to get the the users that you want to share with, where you store your metadata about the shared document, and then the extension points that we did in the Jupyter server are very simple. We use the identity provider that's already there in Jupyter server and exposed a way to come in through a single new endpoint, and then decide not only are you authenticated against that server, but do you have access to the specific document you've been given? And that's based on the document ID. Okay, so it's pretty simple. And then the JupyterLab plugins, the share button, the search modal, and the side panel UIs are just JupyterLab plugins. So there's nothing, out of the ordinary here, we're just extending the interfaces that already exist and then providing a server extension and a service, this publishing service that you can spin up as a hub service. And we're just, we couldn't get the work all the way finished and across the line before JupyterCon to say, here, use this out of the box. So we'd love help with that. It's pretty simple to jump back in. Oh yeah, so this is all the stuff I said, sorry. Jumped ahead. So yeah, so this is, you can hit this QR code. That'll take you to the URL where we're doing this work. So you'll see a very bare, empty GitHub org that we're starting to try to drum up energy around this problem. But similar to what we talked about in the Jupyter AI space, is the goal here is to start to create the building blocks for notebook sharing. It's a problem we've all had for a long time, is how do we solve notebook sharing? And we're hoping to try to kind of start the conversation around what are those building blocks we need, and I think we've provided some out of the box to get started. But the hope here is that others show up and get involved and start solving this problem together. And at the very minimum, let's get it working in a hub context. And then as people who are running it in other configurations and cloud providers or whatever, these pieces should be able to just port into whatever environment you're running it in. And that's the hope here. So with that, we hope to see you guys over there. But thank you for listening to us today.